I feel sorry for straight men these days. They don't know whether they can touch or not, have a kiss or not, or how do you approach it precisely. It's for you, it's you know, so different in the gay world. Hello once again. Nice to see you again. I've been asked since we last spoke about why I left the escort business, why I quit if things were so good and so busy and so much money coming in, why I quit. Well, the answer is quite simple. You have to give it up before it gives you up, because believe me, it can destroy you, mind, body and soul. I think it was about the late, middle 90s, 96, 97, I started a group called the Gay Spiritual Group. And I stuck an advert in the press. I didn't know what it was going to be like. I've always been a spiritual person, so I thought, let's see what there is. I had a lot of inquiries, and on the first night I planned to all get together. It was a Friday night. I had 19 people turn up at my house. And we had a most wonderful evening in the garden, sitting, men. I think it was all men. I don't think there were any lesbians or trans. I think it was just gay men. And we had a wonderful evening in the garden, and everybody was just talking and sharing spiritual stuff to do with the gay world and how it affected them, their Christianity, their Catholicism, their Judaism, whatever it was that wasn't working for them, and how their spiritual aspect of their lives was working better for them. And we did a weekly social, or I think it was a monthly social, a weekly meditation, a weekly discussion. I did all sorts of different things at that time for the Gay Spiritual Group, and ended up hosting 2 large conferences at the London Union, what was it called? The London Students' Union building. It's a long time ago, 98 and 99, and put on a huge conference for up to 200 people each time with 28 workshops, including the Brahma Kumaris and all sorts of big organizations and local people, gay, bi, trans, putting on their workshops on spiritual aspects as it affects the LGBT community. And the group sort of took over, it sort of took off. And I was taking a lot more time off to be with it than I was with my business. And I was concerned that I wasn't making the money. I was, but I was taking a lot of time off to be with the spiritual group. And I knew I was destined for something more. And there was a night in my playroom dungeon that I was actually having a wank on my own in this dark dungeon playroom, which I'd done many times before. It was my room. I'd used it hundreds of times. But something bizarre happened. I was in my dark dungeon having a wank, and as I came, I know it sounds silly, I looked over at the trash bin, this black bin that all the rubbish went into, ready to be washed for the next day, all the towels and the toys. So I didn't have to do it now. And I burst into tears. As I came, I glanced at this garbage can and just burst into tears and sat there with a limp dick in my hand, all spunky, and sobbed. And I mean, I really sobbed. And I sobbed for about, a good 10, 15 minutes, which is exhausting. And when I sort of stopped at the end and I sort of came round, I knew what it was telling me. It was telling me that it was time to leave the business. It was time to move on, that I wasn't just going to be an escort, that it was time to do something else. Which is a frightening concept, because I'd been 15 years living in London, 15 years building a relationship with my friends, my business, and I was well known. And suddenly I was thinking of giving it all up and leaving, which is what I did. But I had the house valued, and I had no idea it was worth the money it was worth. No idea. And so, of course, when they gave me this whopping great price, of course, I stuck it on the market straight away. But it was a life-changing experience. Everybody I know who's ever left England or left their home and gone abroad to Florida or Spain or France. I've known a lot of people who do this in their 40s, like I was doing. But they've always done it with a partner, with somebody. And here was I doing it on my own. And I did think of going to Spain or France and buying a villa or a chateau, because I could afford it, had the money. But I don't speak a language. And I'm lost without language. I like to communicate. And I was also doing it on my own. and I didn't have a team of people behind me. I didn't have anybody to help me with the building work and getting carpenters and knowing what they were talking about, not just in a foreign language, but also just what they're talking about. Builders, plumbers, carpenters, when they're, you need to have someone around who knows a little bit about what you're talking about. I didn't know anybody then. So it really would have been on my own in a foreign country, struggling. So I asked the guides above what, who, where, and I know it sounds crummy, corny, but I was shown in a vision 2 little signs of Bournemouth, which is where I'm from originally. But I've been gone over 30 years, about 30. I left when I was about 16, I was then 45, so nearly 30 years. And I've been back over the years, just for a few days here and there, but it was like going backwards, back to my childhood, and I didn't think, I don't want to go backwards. But I did come down to Bournemouth, and I did stay with my family. My twin brother and his wife and kids are here, so I stayed with them. And it was a different town to the one I remembered, a very different town to the one I remembered. It was more growing up. I was changed. I wasn't the same person coming back. And the town had changed quite a lot in those years, for the better, I have to say. And so I looked around, and I found a property, which sadly fell through. And I had to stay with my family for 5 months before I found Hamilton Hall. But the reason I left was it was time to do something else. I was told by a psychic that I was destined to do something spiritually intellectual. Well, I'm not really an intellectual, but at one of my big parties in London for the spiritual group, somebody said, John, you may not think yourself suitable of running a spiritual group, but just look what is happening here. You've got 50, 60 people here in your home, all with a cocktail and laughing and giggling, but they're all talking spiritual stuff. They may be gay, LGBT, but they are talking spiritual stuff. It's not just a pickup. It is what it is meant to be, the gay spiritual group. And I was thrilled when he said this, because I was always wondering, people are going to use it for the wrong reasons. But the group produced a very good weekends, some very good events, a lot of friends, a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. But the visions of Bournemouth were showing me a different way. And so I knew I had to leave. I knew it was time. The sex industry will chew you up and spit you out. If you're not careful, it really can. And it's not the business, it's the clients. They do like to play games with your head. The gay media, shockingly, the way they play with you and abuse you and give you absolutely zero respect, even though you're spending so much money. Gay Times was always the worst. I'm going back into the 80s and 90s here, but Gay Times was always the rudest. It's a different company now. But it was time to go. And while there were tens of thousands of clients over the years, and I'd stayed negative and kind of sane, it can and does do damage to people. And I knew it was time to leave. That crying, that sobbing in the dungeon really was a wake-up call for me. And I knew it was time to go. So the house went on the market. It was sold within a month. And everything went into storage. My cats had to go into a cattery because the place I was looking at in Bournemouth actually fell through. And I wasn't at all disappointed, because I knew that there was something else better on the horizon, that this clearly wasn't the right place for me. So I was quite excited about, And the first thing I looked at in the new year of 2000 was Hamilton Hall. And it's funny, because as soon as I didn't really want Hamilton Hall, because on paper it didn't have much of a garden, and I was looking at something with a big garden. So I didn't really want to look at it, but I got it 3 times in 3 days through the mail. And once it's saying hello, twice it's saying hello, and 3 times it's going, are you listening? Pay me attention. So when I got the details of Hamilton Hall 3 times in 3 days, I paid it attention. I thought, hasn't got much of a garden. But now I've been having this dream for a long, long time, for years, that I was in an attic room with a hidden room inside the attic room. Anyway, I came to Hamilton Hall, and the very nice lady, real estate agent, showed me around. And as soon as the Hamilton Hall had been on the market for a good year. Somebody else was buying it, but they fell through. Then I came along. Now, when I walked in the door, the house spoke to me. It didn't say, and what are we going to do? What? It looked at me and went, and what are we going to be doing together? The house knew as soon as I walked in the door, I was the one. And I was puzzled by this. Looked around the hotel, came up into this loft room where I am now, and there was a wall across part of the room with a wardrobe in front of it, and behind the wardrobe was a door, and behind the door was a closet, and at the back of the closet was this door here into another room. It's full of storage, it's full of tanks, it's freezing in the winter, boiling in the summer, but it's full of tanks and things. But it was this hidden room. And although it was different than in my dream, the house spoke to me. What are we going to be doing together? And it had this hidden room that I've been seeing in my dreams for, some years, differently. It was always the same in my dream, but it was different to reality. But nevertheless, that was it. That's what told me, this is it. So the business went. I closed the escort agency. I gave my telephone numbers to a friend for about 6 months so he could continue taking my clients, and until eventually we had the numbers ceased, and 15 years of being an escort came to an end. It was a traumatic change for me because I had to move in with my family, my brother and his wife and 2 young daughters, for about 5 months while I was looking for Hamilton Hall, because the place I was buying, as I said, fell through. And so that was an interesting learning curve. And eventually found Hamilton Hall. So the business closed, and a new phase of my life was coming at 45 years of age, a bit frightening, but I had a few bob behind me. My cats were in a cattery for 5 months. I was free to do my own thing, and eventually found Hamilton Hall. So you can't always stay a sex worker. I know people who have, and they've been 30, 40 years in the business. That's too much. And they don't have a personal life. They don't have a sex life outside of the business. Their lives are a bit fucked, really, because you get so used to the business that you can't have normal sex after that. You can't have a normal relationship after that. And it is difficult. And for me to make this life-changing decision to give up everything I knew, because it'd been a long time, everything I knew, for something I had no idea whether it was going to work or not. No idea whether it was called for sort of a men-only hotel, the spiritual, sexual and self-development. I had no idea. But it proves I was right. It took a few years, but here we are. So that's how I got out of the business. It was a wank in my playroom, bursting into tears that just really told me that it was time to go. There probably were other signs before that. I didn't really notice them so much as I did with this one time in the loft in my playroom. It was quite a moment. So I stopped being a sex symbol and became a normal human being. Did I say normal? Anyway, I invite you to subscribe and join the group, and we'll talk some more. There's so much more to share with you. So much more. Let me know what you think. Put your comments below. Thanks to Chris for doing all the editing. And thanks for joining me today. We'll speak again soon. Don't forget to subscribe. With love.